Boom! Right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Get back in the room.
Hi everybody and welcome back to Elle the Law Student. So today I thought I would answer a question that I get asked quite a lot. Basically, what does an Oxford degree entail? Now you might not realise, but an Oxford degree is very different to a degree that you get at a different university, just because the teaching style is really different. I thought I would basically run through what I do as part of my degree to learn, so that you kind of get an idea as to how there's a difference. One thing I will say is that this really depends on your course. So for example, if you're doing a science course, you're more likely to have more lectures and you'll have practicals and that sort of thing. So the first thing that happens is at the beginning of every term you get your reading list. You don't read everything on the list most of the time, but what you do have to do is kind of go through and make sure that you have a good overview of the topic, and your tutor will generally kind of star things that they think are super important. So what's up on the screen at the moment is my reading list for criminal law, which I studied this time last year, and I thought I would pop this on here because this is a relatively standard reading list, and also because it is something that first year students get. So here at the top you have your textbook chapter or pages that you're supposed to read. Anything with a star next to it is generally highly recommended that you read, if not compulsory. As you go down, these here are cases. So the way that we tend to search for cases is we'll take this last little bit, we'll take the date and we'll take the reference and pop it into one of the legal databases to bring that case up. And so yeah, all of these are cases. If they're double starred, that means they're really, really important. If they're starred, that means they're compulsory to read. And anything else, generally I find it's good to just have an overview of. Then moving on, you've also got articles. Here for example you have oblique intention, and all of these articles are just the academic opinions on that area of the law. And so you will read those and make some notes. And yeah, this is kind of generally what a reading list would look like, because you just have it divided into sections. At the bottom, some tutors do differ, but most of my tutors give you problems to discuss at the bottom. They might be something that you come back to and look at in tutorials. And then right at the bottom you'll have your essay title, or you will have your problem question that you're answering that week. That would be for one tutorial, and then if you multiply that by 8, that's your entire course. So there were 8 reading lists for criminal law last year. The thing that is different between Oxford and other universities is that that reading list is done before the tutorial rather than afterwards. So I thought I would bring you through kind of an idea of what I did this week to sort of illustrate the structure and the general order of how we do things, because it can be a little bit confusing. Before I sort of properly started looking into Oxford, I assumed it was just like any other university's teaching style. So normally you've got lectures, you might have some classes where you have maybe 10 people, and you go to the lectures and the classes and then you'll do an essay. That's not how it works. Your lectures are on a big timetable, so most of the time they don't actually align with what you're studying at the moment. For example, I'm currently studying tort law and trusts, but I'm also going to land law lectures because I'm studying land law at the end of this year, but all of the land law lectures are now. Conversely, I studied contract law last term and I've still not had my contract law lectures. They'll be later on in the year. So the lectures are really kind of separate to what you're actually studying at that point in time. As I said, you get your reading list at the beginning of the term. Now, in most colleges and most terms, what you then do is you have 1.5 tutorials a week. So what that means is you have 8 weeks per term. In week 1, 3, 5 and 7 you'll probably have 2 tutorials, and then in your other weeks you'll only have 1 tutorial. You end up doing an essay and a half each week, if that makes sense. Sometimes that varies. Sometimes I've had terms where I only have 1 tutorial a week, which was really nice, Other terms I've had 2 tutorials a week, which can get a little bit hectic. To prepare for a tutorial, what you do is you do your reading and then you write an essay. And this is where often people get confused, because what you're essentially doing is teaching yourself, writing the essay, and then going to the tutorial and learning about the subject. So it's kind of in reverse. What a tutorial is that you go in and it's normally between 1 and 3 of you. So this term my tutorials are 1-to-1, but a lot of the time there's 2 students and 1 tutor there. You'll often go through what you've written that week. In some of my tutorials, the tutor asks you to read out your whole essay and then they critique it as you go. I don't mind that, but I personally prefer the ones where we sit down and talk about the law in general. I find that I get a lot out of those. Then you'll probably get your essay back at the end of that tutorial or have it emailed back to you a couple of days later. You also have classes sometimes. You'll have all of the students, so for me I think there's 10 of us in my year at Worcester, so there'll be the 10 of us in there with the tutor, and that is more of your kind of standard class that you might have at school. It really varies according to the tutor because everybody has quite a large degree of freedom in terms of how they teach the content. I mean, some tutors don't do any at all. The maximum I've ever had with a tutor is I've had 2 classes and 6 tutorials. Then something kind of in addition to that, you also have revision classes. So when you're coming up towards your exams, you'll kind of get back with your tutor, and that's an opportunity for you to ask any questions. What I personally really like about this system is that you don't waste your time when you're with the tutor going through content that you could actually just learn yourself by reading the textbook. You're really getting to the nitty-gritty of the issues. The one thing that it does mean is that an Oxford degree can be super intense because it's so independent. So because you've got 1.5 tutorials a week, then you're looking at 52.5 hours a week recommended time to be spending on that reading and then on the essay. So yeah, it is intense, but you do have to balance that out with the fact that contact hour wise, I probably have 8 contact hours a week, because at the moment I've probably got about 1 to 2 hours of lectures most days, but then I've only got 1 hour tutorial on a Monday and then another hour on a Thursday every other week. So yeah, it's very much independent and it can be quite difficult to get everything done, but yeah, it is a completely different way of learning. I hope that's kind of covered quite a lot of things. I'm happy to answer any more questions on them. I understand that might have been a little bit confusing, but I was hoping I could try and condense it into one video. I'll see you soon.